Hey everyone, welcome back to Kubrick Corner with me, Sean Wilson. So you can't fail to have noticed that there's a new Marvel movie out, Captain Marvel. So the 21st movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which amazingly has now spanned 11 years, and for my money has kept up a consistent stream of quality during the better part of those 11 years. And that's not to say that I've liked all of the Marvel films, but I was actually tossing this up the other day, and I think there are probably about five or six movies within this franchise that I've sort of enjoyed less than the sort of high points. Think of things like Thor: The Dark World, which wasn't as good, but broadly speaking, I don't think Marvel have made a genuinely bad film yet. So consequently, whenever a new Marvel film comes out, it comes freighted with a degree of expectation. As far as I'm concerned, I always think to myself, "Oh, really hope this isn't the one that's going to let the side down." And clearly, Captain Marvel has been attended with an awful lot of expectation, not just because it's a Marvel movie, but because of the character that it introduces, and also because of the it plays into issues of gender parity and gender equality. It's the first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to be led by an actress, Brie Larson. First one to be co-directed by a woman, Anna Boden. And it's the first Marvel movie to be scored by a woman, Pinar Toprak. In fact, Pinar Toprak has become the first ever woman to score a comic book movie. So all of this attendant hype and expectation it's caused the expectation to reach like near hysterical like levels. In addition to it being another Marvel blockbuster, and I've been reading some of the reviews of it in advance of me having seen it, and I saw that it kind of split opinions. Some people said, well, maybe it holds more value symbolically in terms of its gender politics rather than as a piece of storytelling itself. So I went in kind of nervous about it, hoping that it would live up to expectations. So I'm going to be very careful to try and steer around the plot, because there are things in it that I could reveal quite easily that would actually sort of spoil things later on. So I'm going to be as brief as possible. The basic setup is, so based on Marvel Comics mythology, you pick up in media res, in the middle of the action, with a character played by Brie Larson called Veers, who is on a planet that we haven't yet seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, makes its debut. She is haunted by her past memories. She is being trained by Jude Law, who is her mentor, being taught to control her emotions in order to become a warrior for the Kree alien race. There is a battle going on between the Kree and the Skrulls, who are shapeshifters, and who invade planets and infiltrate planets by being able to assume the physical form of other creatures, other people. Through a series of sort of plot machinations, Veers ends up on Earth, where she ends up teaming up with Nick Fury, the younger Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And bearing in mind this is set in 1995, they've used some really quite remarkable CGI effects to de-age Sam Jackson, and from there, that's where I'm going to stop with the plot. And basically, it's all about what do Veers' memories, in terms of what she's haunted by. She's haunted by apparent memories of her time on Earth in the Air Force. And what does that mean? And also, what does her future hold? And I think. Well, the movie is directed by Anna Boden and Brian Fleck, who come out of indie cinema. You think of things like Half Nelson and Mississippi Grind and Sugar as well. And it's really interesting when you get filmmakers like this, who they are idiosyncratic indie filmmakers who've clearly been brought on to bring some kind of some sort of unique, quirky sensibility to it. You think of Taika Waititi with Thor Ragnarok. You think of Ryan Coogler with Black Panther, which really set a new benchmark last year for movies within this particular universe. So I went in hoping for a certain amount of personality, and bearing in mind the mixed reviews the film's got, I really liked it. I thought there was personality in it, and I think there are a number of reasons why I like the movie. I mean, first and foremost, Brie Larson's central performance is really, really good. She won an Oscar for Room. There's no denying that she's a terrific actor. What she does is she gets that ethereal sense of otherness, that sense that particularly when she arrives on Earth, she is a fish out of water. She doesn't understand human behaviour, human conventions. That leads to a lot of quite nice humour. but she was also able to convince you of this sense of alienness of the character. And given that this is a character who is born of two worlds, she is a warrior for the Kree, yet she is haunted by these apparent human origins. The performance has to kind of straddle two different divides. It has to be convincingly alien, yet it also has to convince you that she has some kind of human connection with the audience, and I think she does that really well. I think it's a really good performance, and that is the kind of fulcrum, that is the glue that holds the movie together. I also think, as I said, the de-aging effects on Sam Jackson are really, really good. I didn't look at it seeing it as a special effect. I completely bought into the fact that this is Nick Fury as a young man. I didn't look at it as a series of CGI wizardry effects, and I think Sam Jackson is as engaged and enthused as he has been in a movie for a very long time. He shares great chemistry with Brie Larson. I also think the structure of the story works really well. I've seen a few reviews which have said that the story is narratively quite confused. I don't think it is. I think that by building the central character as an enigma, and by sort of withholding the mystery of who she was until quite late on in the movie, and by withholding that, the mystery of where she is going to go, of whom she is going to transform into later on, becomes all the more exciting. You're in a state of suspense because you think, how is her past, which comes through in bits and pieces and fragments, going to embolden her and empower her to become this all-powerful figure? And I think there is an empowering message behind the film, which I think is really important as well. I think that it doesn't labour it, but particularly in the final act, you get the movie seems to act as an explicit rebuke of sort of decades of lazy filmmaking in which a woman's identity is kind of shaped by a man. That particularly in the latter stages of Captain Marvel, you get an explicit rebuke to that, going, no, this particular lead character does not have to prove herself within those contexts, and that makes it really exciting to watch. Again, aided by Brie Larson's performance, that again has this kind of ethereal strangeness, but which is also fun. I mean, as Veers' powers sort of come to the fore, you get a sense that she's enjoying these powers. It throws back to the likes of the first Iron Man movie, where Robert Downey Jr. first put on the suit and is clearly having such a blast with this. You think, okay, yeah, there is a human connection there, because she is clearly having an absolute ball, utilising these abilities. And why wouldn't you? If you were in her position, you would as well. And I think that's really, really great. And I think the score by Pinot Pratt, it kind of holds back in the first half and then really emerges with these kind of Alan Silvestri-esque melodies and action sequences towards the end. I thought that worked really, really well. I think there's a raft of really great supporting performances. Lashana Lynch as Maria, who was plays a significant role in Veers' past on Earth, is really, really good, and I imagine she's being set up for later movies. And indeed, I imagine one of the criticisms of this movie is going to be that it is, it might be seen as a placeholder. I mean, certainly, as with all Marvel movies, there is a sense that each individual movie is a puzzle piece, and that other ones are going to follow. And certainly, this doesn't buck that trend at all. There is a lot set up in this, which presumably is going to flourish later on. But I don't have a problem with that, because I really like the character and I like the setup in this. You've got Ben Mendelsohn, one of my favourite actors, Ben Mendelsohn from Rogue One as Talos, who is the Skrull leader, who actually goes through his own very interesting journey in this film, and I think it plays to Ben Mendelsohn's strengths. He's not just the current MVP in terms of playing Hollywood baddies. Ben Mendelsohn is a really good actor, and I think it gives him a lot to work with. I think he's terrific. More Ben Mendelsohn, please, in any film. So I think that's all really good, and I think it's directed with a sense of brio and charm. I don't necessarily think it's not perfect. I think narratively it's pedestrian in terms of the way the plot is put together. I mean, certainly things happen in the plot where I kind of think, yeah, I anticipated that happening earlier on. I've seen this done in other blockbuster movies before, and certainly there are certain sequences in which, because this is set in 1995, it has to set up later MCU iconography. I think there are certain bits that are handled that don't have as much significance or weight as perhaps they ought to do. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm sure people who've seen the movie and who will see the movie will probably know what I mean when they go and see it. So I think there are bits that are clumsily handled. I think some of the 1990s nostalgia is fun. I mean, I'm a 90s kid, and I like the gags about CD-ROM and Blockbuster Video, and I dare say if any of the nostalgia in this prompts any sort of millennials to go and sort of look into all this stuff, great. I found some of that quite funny. Some of it was a bit laboured and a bit clumsy and sort of troweled on a bit too heavily. And again, I think there is a sense that this is part of a wider corporate BMOS. So you could say there is a sense of cynicism behind it, but at the end of the day, I'll always know if one of these Marvel movies works if by the end of it I want to see the character in another film, and I do. I want to see Captain Marvel. I want to see how she's going to flourish within the later Marvel mythology, both in terms of the wider Avengers movies and also her own standalone movies. I mean, clearly we've got Avengers Endgame coming out in the UK on the 25th of April. There's a lot of expectation as to how she's going to play into that. I also want to see more movies with her in it, so on their own terms. So I really, really enjoyed it. What can I say? I thought it was really good fun. Not a classic Marvel movie. I mean, it's not up there with the Iron Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, but it's not far behind for me. I think it's empowering, funny, and exciting, and I'd really like to know what you think of it. So drop me a comment here at Kubrick Corner, and I'll see you soon. Bye.